Hi, my name is Julia Diekmann from Diekmann Science Services, and I work with the Kaua'i Forest Bird Recovery Project. We also have Kim Rogers and Halen Chalk from the Kauai Invasive Species Committee, and together we have produced Forest Fridays, a collaborative, interactive, and interdisciplinary virtual outreach series. So here's the challenge that we faced while doing outreach about conservation on Kauai. Our conservation work is done at remote locations and rugged terrain. It is already difficult for the field staff to get there, let alone members of the public. Additionally, we also have a somewhat limited infrastructure on Kauai. The road only goes halfway around the island, so outreach events typically target only one side or even less of the island. On top of that, getting the community excited despite the seemingly constant bad news in conservation in Hawaii is difficult in the best of times. If you think that these challenges are already quite enough, we agree. But then COVID came along and put a halt to all our in-person outreach efforts for the past 2 years. Now what? Now we had this idea to host a virtual outreach series on Zoom as a collaborative project between the Kauai Forest Bird Recovery Project and the Kauai Invasive Species Committee, and bring the forest to you, wherever you're on lockdown. We also wanted to make sure that we look at the entire ecosystem, the entire forest, including all species found there, and also including the often overlooked cultural element by bringing in cultural practitioners. Our goal was to give the forest a voice, to start a conversation about conservation on Kauai. Our objectives were clear. For one, connect and expand. We wanted to feature scientists and conservationists of Kauai-based organizations and put their work in the spotlight. The other element was to bring in the perspective of our cultural practitioners. We also wanted to increase our reach and expand our audience beyond the usual group of interested people. Our second objective was to have engaging and interactive events, to create a conversation about conservation in the forest with the participants. Each episode was guided by a question, and participants could submit questions in advance or ask during the event. We had events with presentations by scientists, events that were structured like an interview, and events featuring videos as a way of doing a virtual field trip. Now, let's hear from Kim how we got the word out about our events.
Thanks, Julia. We developed a multi-part communication strategy. First, we came up with the logo, which we used in all communications, social media, emails, press releases, in order to increase recognition. We also designed unique graphics for each event and created social media posts, reels, stories, as well as Facebook events. We sent out press releases to local media and participated in numerous on-air radio interviews. We invited subscribers of both KISC and KFBRP newsletter mailing lists, providing viewers the option of registering to attend on Zoom or watch via the live stream on Facebook. Utilizing a feature in Zoom, we captured email addresses of those who registered, and we sent out post-event show notes with the link to each recording, which we uploaded to both KISC and KFBRP YouTube channels for those who may have missed the live event. And we did all of this with a budget of $0. Now, let's have a look at the events we hosted. We produced 8 events in 2021 and 2 so far in 2022, with the next one coming up in August. 8 of our events were guided by a question like, what's the fate of our forests? Or, how much loss can our forests take? Our 2 special events were a Halloween event, Ghouls of the Forest, a short play about all the threats to our forest and what we can do to help. The second special event was an episode about Kauai-based artists working in or with the forest. Our goal was to give back to our local artists who have been very supportive of our conservation efforts over the years. We aimed to bring together people from conservation-oriented organizations, starting with KFBRP and KISC, and then connecting with 12 other conservation organizations based on Kauai, and 2 from other islands but working here on Kauai. In addition, we brought in 3 halau, 3 schools, and 5 conservation-supporting artists from around the island. Our attendance varied from 14 to 100 logins, with an average of 44 logins per event. And now, Halen will share some data with you on how we did achieving our objectives.
Thanks, Kim. Our first objective was to connect and expand. When looking at the participants from our events, we had a lot of participants from Kauai and the other Hawaiian Islands. But we also expanded our reach to the U.S. mainland and internationally. We had people join in from as far as Canada, Mexico, and Japan. Our Zoom discussion was live streamed to both KISC and the KFBRP Facebook pages. As well, we uploaded the videos of each to our YouTube. Over time, we've had more views on all platforms, thus far totaling 6,576 combined views on Facebook and an additional 1,133 combined views on YouTube, with 169.76 hours of viewership on YouTube alone. As Zoom added robust elements to its platform, we added a post-event survey for participants to complete. When asked, from 1 being not so much to 5 being lots, how much did you learn from this presentation? 47 respondents answered 4 or 5, indicating more than 2/3 of respondents gained a good amount of knowledge from our Forest Friday conversations. We also asked, what actions, if any, might you take based on what you learned today? And discovered, not too surprisingly, the top 2 answers were to share information with family and friends and attend more webinars and workshops like our Forest Friday events. Tied in the 3rd place slot were 2 hopeful responses: to practice biosanitation before and after entering the forest and participate in advocacy to support forest conservation. This provides direction into possible future outreach conversations and efforts. Now let's hear again from Julia about our next steps.
Thank you, Halen. Moving forward, we definitely would like to keep the conversation going. There are still a few groups we would like to invite and feature in our Forest Friday events. Since we are now able to do in-person events again, we will reduce the frequency of our Forest Fridays to quarterly. We will continue to collect data on participants and send out post surveys to increase engagement. We are planning to promote our materials to schools and community groups as a free online resource to bring conservation into the classrooms. We also plan to edit the existing materials for use in social media to keep our audience engaged. Lastly, we will provide updates from previous Forest Friday episodes and follow up on progress to keep our audience in the loop. With that, we would like to extend a big mahalo to all of you for listening, and we are looking forward to our next Forest Friday on August 12th at 4 p.m. on Zoom. You can register for the event by scanning the QR code on this page or check our social media pages of the Kauai Forest Bird Recovery Project or the Kauai Invasive Species Committee. The QR code you see on this page also has all of our contact information. Mahalo, and see you at our next Forest Friday.
But you know, Kumuhula, a Hawaiian practitioner, and Olapa, the Pilina, the relationship between us and the forest people, as my friend Kekuhi likes to call it, is a very special Pilina because we are an extension. We are an extension. We are one. We are connected.
What continues to stoke my interest in conservation is the interconnectedness of things, and that if we help animals and plants, they will help us.
If they live, we live. If they thrive, we thrive. And so our health and well-being depends on the health and well-being of the forest, and especially of the birds.
Understanding that the forests are really important aspects of our lives that, we we can't exist without them.
Hawaii is a botanist stream. However, unfortunately, it's also known as the extinction capital of the world. Not just plants, but birds and insects and other taxa as well.
There's a lot of places where there's no longer a lot of native forests left. And so being able to protect those places where we do still have that is just a high priority.
We need to take an aquifer approach. We need to take a leaf out of the Hawaiian's book and look at how we manage those whole areas, because it's definitely more effective if you can get some of the problems in the forest under control, and ungulate fencing is definitely part of that. Then your wetlands will do better too.
I'll tell you, for lei anymore, I don't use ohia. There's a lei I showed you from years ago that has ohia. Everything else today, we don't use it anymore. And it's beautiful in many places. It's flourishing, but it's a time to rest it.
For me, I don't think it's really a question that ohia is worth saving. I'll just say a small anecdote, because I was there to sample the tree that recently came back as a luku detection in the Alakai. And when we came up to that tree, it really was just a magnificent organism, covered in moss and acting as a nursery log for lapa lapa and hapu'u, and probably like over 100 native species just in one tree. And it really showed me how much of an ecosystem that a single ohia tree can act as, and it demonstrated very clearly that ohia is the backbone for a healthy forest.